You are so fluent. It's like you are going to show me to move. No, it's not forever. Oh, I think Naresh is going to sit somewhere here. Right. Colleagues, let's proceed. The next item on our agenda, colleagues, I am not going to do what I normally do in other meetings where I go outside and call other colleagues. Remember what I said when we break, ne? We are ethics officers here. So the next item that we are going to take is the presentation on the findings of the SMS financial disclosure verification. That will be done by Ms. Busisiwe Kasana from the Public Service Commission. While she's still coming to the podium, on the overview, colleagues, of the first part of the morning, is there anyone who want to recap, any volunteer to recap on the takeaways? Anyone who would like to recap on the overview of what happened this morning, colleagues? Okay, it looks like we're still having our tea. For me, the key takeaway was that we need to be courageous in the type of work that we do as ethics officers, regardless of who is in your favor, who's supporting you, have that courage. I know it's not easy. I was making an example here to pleasure that during the financial disclosure season, I even communicate, those reminders to say the system will be closing in 29 days, Send out those reminders to their colleagues and also to their supervisors. Others were angry at me, saying, why did I report them? Because the system has not yet closed. I said, I'm not reporting you. We are monitoring the progress. One senior manager or executive said to me, you're monitoring. It's too much for us. You are getting under our underwears. So as ethics officers, we need to have that thick skin. We are going to go through this. We'll have those type of words, but let's have that courage and let's be content on the type of work we do because we are making a difference out there. It can be as if it's not recognized, you're not adding value, but outside we see the bigger picture. You are ready now? Okay, over to you, Sis Busisiwe.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Busisiwe Kasana from Public Service Commission. I greet the Minister of Malawi and the delegation of Malawi, the DG of the Public Service, Dr. Rousseau, colleagues, and all those that are on the platform. Diani Bulisa, I greet you all. As I have mentioned that my name is Busisiwe Kasana, I work in the Public Service Commission in the management of conflicts of interest. Me and my team, what we do is we monitor compliance with the financial disclosure framework, assess and scrutinize the financial disclosure forms with the view to identify potential conflicts of interest. Thereafter, we advise the Commission and the executive authorities on our findings. After that, we give 30 days period to monitor and evaluate on the actions taken by the EAs to address on those identified conflicts of interest. We also monitor and evaluate the trends with regard to management of conflict of interest. Afterwards, we produce an overview report where we indicate on the implementations of the financial disclosure framework. Therefore, my presentation for today will be on the, will be on the findings of the SMS financial disclosure form verification. Then my presentation will be as follows. It will be the introduction and background, the state of compliance with the requirement to submit financial disclosure forms by the due date of 31st May each year, comparison of the submission rate at the due date over the past 5 financial years, the findings emanating from our scrutiny findings over the past 3 financial years, the compliance with the requirement to take actions, and the report back to the PSC. That will also do in a detailed past 3 financial years. The challenges experienced by the Public Service Commission in ensuring compliance, the recommendations, and closing with the conclusion. Briefly on the introduction and background. The PSC is an independent and impartial institution established in terms of Chapter 10 of the Constitution of South Africa. The Public Service Commission, it must exercise its powers and perform its functions without fear, favor, and prejudice. Therefore, the powers and functions of the PSC are provided for in Section 196 of the Constitution. In terms of the Public Service Commission Act, the Public Service Commission may exercise the powers and shall perform the duties entrusted to it by or under this Act, the Constitution, or the Public Service Act. And then with regard to the promotion and maintenance of a high standard of professional ethics, the PSC monitors compliance with the financial disclosure framework, which is contained in Part 2 of Chapter 2 of the Public Service Regulation. Then, we're going to discuss on the state of compliance with the requirement to submit financial disclosure forms by the due date of 31st May 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that we are in the 2021-2022 financial year. Therefore, these are our findings. So during the current reporting period, the overall submission rate of the financial disclosure forms to the PSC by the due date of 31st May 2022 was 96%. And the previous submission rates, which was for 2020 to 2021 financial year, it was 98%. Therefore, we have dropped with the 2 percentage points. So during our findings for 2021 to 2022 financial year, in terms of the submission of the financial disclosure forms, all the HODs in total, there are 156, both in national and in provinces. They submitted their financial disclosure forms by the due date. On. Thank you. Despite the fact that all HODs submitted their disclosures on time to their respective EAs, we still have a challenge whereby there were 8 in the national department and also 8 in the provinces who did not submit their forms for the HODs on time. So we have a challenge with our EAs. Although our HODs, they submit on time, but our EAs, they are also failing us. That should be noted. This is unacceptable, considering the departments have ethics officers whose, I refuse to say duties, delegation, amongst others, are to assist the EAs, which are the executive authorities, and the HODs in terms of submitting their financial disclosure forms and implementation of the framework. These are our statistics findings, where it shows that in terms of the national departments, the number of SMS members are 5,693. And those that have complied with the requirement to submit, there are 5,570, which puts us to 97.8%. In terms of the provinces, we've got 3,976 SMS members and only 3,974 submitted. So the overall total of national departments and provinces, our total number of SMS members is 9,669. And the total number of SMS members that have submitted is 9,544, which puts us at 96%. On this slide, we have a comparison of submission rate as at the due date for the past 5 financial years. The figures shows that between 2017 and 2018 to 2020 and 2021 financial years, there has been an upwards trend in the submission rate. The submission rate, however, declined by 2% point during the 2021 to 2022 reporting period, which is what we are currently at. The decline was as a result of EAs and HODs not releasing the forms to the PSC on time, despite the fact that the relevant SMS members had disclosed their financial interest on time. The PSC is of the opinion that the involvement of you guys, the ethics officers, cannot be overemphasized if improvement is to be achieved with regard to compliance to the framework. In terms of the findings, regarding the disclosure of directorships and companies, the Public Service Commission is currently busy with the findings for the 2021 to 2022 financial year. Therefore, the results we cannot produce for now because we are currently busy with the verifications. Therefore, the results that I'm going to present are the results for the past 3 financial years. Those that include that, they include 2018 to 2019, 2019 to 2020, and 2020 to 2021 financial year. In terms of the national departments, we had 798 total number of SMS members who had registered companies. This includes the HODs, the deputy director generals, chief directors, and not forgetting the directors. The high number was of directors, which was 263. Only because even when you check, we also have the high number of directors as an overall. In terms of the government components, we only have 13, and chief directors were leading in terms of the non-disclosure of their companies. In terms of the provinces, we had 680, and the directors were leading with 150. The disclosure of immovable properties. We also do an analysis for the past 3 financial years, for the 2018 to 2019 financial year, 2019 to 2020 financial year, and 2020 to 2021 financial year. We also discovered that in terms of the properties, when it comes to national departments, we had 5,722 SMS members. And in those SMS members, it was found that 159 directors did not disclose their properties. 36 chief directors, 18 deputy director generals, and only 1 HOD. In terms of the government components, we had a total number of 138, and all of them, they disclosed their properties. So in terms of 2018-2019, it was only 1. In terms of 2019 to 2020, it was only 3. And 2020 to 2021, there was none. The overall total for provinces, we had 4,039, whereby we discovered that 69 directors failed to disclose their properties. 6 chief directors, 4 deputy director generals, and only 3 HODs. So our grand total, the total number of SMS members within the departments, there was 9,899, and 4 HODs in terms of when you combine the national departments and the provinces. We had 4 HODs who failed to disclose their properties. We had 22 deputy director generals, 42 chief directors, and 228 directors. All these failed to submit or failed to comply with the framework in terms of disclosing their properties. Vehicles. We also do an analysis of the 3 financial years. As I have mentioned previously, in terms of our national departments, we had 5,722, and only 2 HODs failed to disclose their vehicles, 18 deputy director generals, 55 chief directors, and 233 directors. In terms of the provinces, we had 4,039 total number of SMSs, and 201 directors failed to disclose their vehicles, 11 HODs, 15 deputy director generals, and 38 chief directors. That gives us a grand total of 9,899, whereby there were only 13 HODs who failed to disclose their vehicles, 33 deputy director generals, 94 chief directors, and 436 directors. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, there is always an explanation behind the non-disclosure of registrable interest, of which we are also going to talk about later on. On this slide, I'm going to present compliance with the requirement to take actions and report back to the PSC on the details of the actions taken over the past 3 financial years. Compliance rate by the EAs with the recommendations of the PSC for the 2017 to 2018, 2018 to 2019, and 2019 to 2020 financial years. As Team PSC, we have discovered that in terms of 2017 to 2018 financial year, in national departments, there was an expectation of 28 HODs EAs to report back in terms of the actions taken to the PSC. And 46 by 2018 to 2019, and 30 in terms of 2019 to 2020. For 2017 to 2018, it was only 3 out of the 38 EAs who responded back to the PSC with the feedback on actions taken. And only 14 in terms of 2018-2019 financial year. The number increased, whereas we were expecting 30 feedbacks, and we only received 22, which was an improvement. In terms of the provinces, for 2017 to 2018, 111 was expected, and only 10, my apologies, only 53 was received. For 2018 to 2019, we were expecting 101, and only 17 was received. 2019 to 2020, we're expecting 107, and we only received 67. This is alarming because as PSC, when we draft our reports, we rely so much in terms of the actions taken by the executive authorities. Therefore, as we stand for our last findings, which was 2019 to 2020, we were expecting a grand total of 137 feedbacks from the EAs, and we only received 89. Now we're going to address the challenges that are experienced by the PSC in ensuring compliance. Failure by SMS members to disclose their financial interest to their respective EAs and HODs on stipulated dates. the non-disclosure of financial interest due to officials being placed on precautionary suspension. So you find that other officials, they refused to comply simply because of they are on suspension. Although this is not a valid reason for failing to comply, as the SMS members, they are still subject to the rules and the regulations that apply to all employees in the public service. Also, failure by the EAs and the HODs to submit the financial disclosure forms to the PSC by the stipulated due date. Yes, we have encountered situations whereby they will tell us that it was a system failure, whereby the system failed to upload their profiles on the e-disclosure on time. Although PSC had tried to intervene and request the DPSA to address these challenges, this challenge amongst others. Lack of sufficient advocacy in the departments regarding compliance with the framework, which lead to repeat offending. Situations like this we encounter when even our ethics officers, when they try to advise our officials, they be like, put it aside, they'll be pushed aside. That's where you find that our ethics officers, they find themselves alone, isolated. So during the 2020 and 21 reporting period, a total of 139 SMS members who did not disclose their interest in companies were repeat offenders. And these can be prevented only if they can take our delegated task as ethics officers serious when we advise as well. So a total of 78 of the SMS members who did not disclose their ownership of vehicles are also repeat offenders. So it shows that we have a serious challenge as ethics officers. And when you address these issues, some of the ethics officers, they indicated that even if they try to advise the officials, they are just being put on moot, or they are not taken seriously, and so forth. So we need to talk more about what can we do to make things different. Give inputs on what we can do different to improve things. As PSC, we've came up with recommendations that the ethics officers are encouraged to work closely with their HODs and EAs in order to assist them to comply with the framework. And this will assist to engage the culture of compliance from the top. Also, ethics officers must try to periodically consult with the central supplier database of the National Treasury to check if companies linked to SMS members do not appear thereon and advise. That's the only thing we can do. Advise the affected employees accordingly about the implications thereof. Ethics officers can also conduct workshops and hold information sharing sessions to educate the employees about the need to comply with the regulation, including compliance with the framework. The ethics officers can also assist, if only allowed, the EAs to respond to the PSC within the 30 days of receipt of the PSC's reports with an indication of how the recommendations will be dealt with. In conclusion, despite the improved system to enable the SMS members to disclose their financial interest on time, there are still departments that are not achieving the 100% compliance rate. The PSC has tried to intervene, but this did not yield to positive results, as the submission rate currently has declined by the 2 percentage point. The behavior of objective should be encouraged to encourage employees to ask ethical questions. And to see the building of a culture of ethics and compliance as a natural part of their delegated day-to-day work. Ethics officers must also ensure that there is a regular ethics exposure through continuous training. As people forget, circumstances and delegations change and responsibilities increase. There must also be consequences for non-compliance as to promote a culture of accountability. I thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Can we give her a Batopele clap, colleagues? Thank you so much for the presentation. I so wish that the colleagues who sometimes forget to submit their financial disclosures can also forget to take their salaries by the end of the month, if it was only possible. But on that note, colleagues, let's take the questions and the comments to PSC on the presentations. How can we improve our current status quo? I know one of the key questions that will come in, it will be the reliability of the third-party data, especially the vehicles, because there we fight with SMS members. Year in, year out, we write same thing, and the same finding comes in to say, what is it that we can do to improve how the information is integrated? Over to you, colleagues. Comments, questions, recommendations? With the hand.
Thank you, colleagues. Zukiswam Debuka from Department of Employment and Labor. We would like a protocol observed in South Africa, so we observe the protocols. Colleagues and colleagues of the Public Service Commission, we appreciate. I think that is beyond measure. We appreciate the report. We appreciate the work that is done through this process. We know what it takes to get to where we are. We appreciate the work of the DPSA in assisting us in communicating fully with us as ethics officers. Saying all of that, we are still having bigger challenges. As you have said, Program Director, the data from the third parties makes us to fight with principals, makes us to fight with senior managers, because the question that always comes, we look at the data from deeds on the issues of talking to the houses that people have. You find that the house has been sold, and then later on it's still appearing in the deeds register. Those are issues that we're dealing with. Other issues is the issues of notice, whereby you find a vehicle or stolen, and then the owner is saying that it has been removed from notice, but we still has to say to the owner, acknowledge that vehicle. So what I wanted to say is that as we appreciate, as we move forward, I do not know how best, it is still baffling me, how best can we get data that is at least been worked on, because we're talking about 5 years of data. I'm working these 3 years. I've been dealing with one thing, the same. So data that is at least updated, and also our third parties to look at the work that we're doing and start to support us. Another thing that has come out, colleagues from my department, is that when we go back and verify on the central supplier database, we discover that the senior manager, the directorship is no longer there, but AG, when he comes back, he brings that name of that manager. So it's on the central, it's not on the central supplier database, but through the system that AG is using, that name reflects. And it comes back and say the data that we're using. I think there's a lot that we can improve in that. But beyond that, we are thankful of having something in our hand. Even when we go back to our departments, we're able to showcase the work that has been done in this area. And when we coerce and pleading for support for our principals, we're able to say to them, the work is very important and we are doing a good work. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, other questions, other comments? Okay, I'll come to you, Minister. Let's start first with the hand at the back. I was expecting many hands, so I'm surprised. Maybe colleagues are sorted. It's only few of us who are having these minor challenges. Yes, you can go ahead.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Pinda Ngambule and I'm from the Office of the Premier in Gauteng. I just want to find out, appreciating the presentation, I just want to find out in terms of disclosures. In Gauteng, we have a problem in terms of getting to a higher number of disclosures, particularly at the Department of Health. So maybe just to benchmark, if maybe we can get maybe from KwaZulu-Natal, I'm trying to look maybe in terms of how big the provinces are or the coverage to say, is it the same problem that they're experiencing that side, or is it just a Gauteng problem? My second question will be on consequence management. From the presentation, I can see that there's lots of non-compliance, but there is no indication of what is being done. There is a recommendation to say consequence management needs to be taken, but by who and why is it not happening? Because we know who are the culprits. So why are actions not being taken? And we will continue in this pattern for years and nothing happens. So policies then become useless because you've got policies that tell you what needs to be done, but people will not respect the policies if no actions are being taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Allow me to finish with you, Minister. Let me take the hands first at the back. There's another hand there at the corner. The deputy. Oh.
Thank you.
Noted.
2 questions. One being that in some instances, and my department has experienced this, we have had cases where SMS members have resigned and we struggle to get them removed from the list. And these are people that have resigned and not have indicated where they have gone to, and HR is not able to give us a screen that would show us, that would indicate where they have gone to because they don't have that information. And as a result, we end up not having 100% compliance. The second one, also on that note, I would like to find out how we can work together to handle such unique cases. Second one would be on the challenges slide. it was indicated that it's not acceptable for people that have been suspended to not be compliant. So in our department, when a person is suspended, tools of trade are taken from that person and there is no access to the department. How do we then, what approach do we use to assist that official that is not meant to even have contact with the department, that does not have the tools of trade, that does not have access to the department to comply? Thank you.
Thank you. There was a hand at the back.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Madiagane Marota. I'm from Gauteng Department of Economic Development. Mine, I think, is. I think I want to be hidden. Okay, I was requested to stand up. I shall do so. I think mine, it's linked to the systems as well. And I think as much as we request, the SMS members to disclose their shares, their loans, and it would be very interesting, because we don't have that data to validate that information is accurate. It would be very interesting to get such, confirmation, because some of the risk indicators could actually lie there in terms of, the amount of loan that one would have taken, and could be an indication of, say, how would they be in a position to pay for such, and maybe be proactive in that instance. And the other element, it's with regards to the companies on CSD. Often you'd find SMS members would tell you that, it's something that was there some time ago. I haven't done business with the state, and I'm not even intending to. And on my side, I always have a non-compliance letter ready, but the argument is, but I'm not doing business. So what is the issue? So I'm trying to figure out, in that instance, can we actually refer the matter to labor relations to be able to constitute consequence management? Yeah, I'll leave it there for now.
Thank you. We'll take Ntate Piti and then come to, I think I noted few hands this side. Ntate Piti and then this side.
Thank you very much, Program Coordinator. My question is one, regarding the repetitive transgressions that have been picked up during the verification process. PSC, because it's mandated to either investigate and to resolve or to address these transgressions. What has been happening, because now repetitive findings place a burden on ethics officers, because we have to deal with the same issues each and every year. And the SMS members are very, they are not cooperating with ethics officers. At the same time, the information that we provide to PSC, when we report on the feedback that we have gathered after we have received the reports. When they do the final verification, are they considering the previous response that have been collected from the SMS members regarding those areas of transgressions? Because for me, it's useless to go and ask the same SMS member about the same car that the SM members has indicated in the last 3 years that this car has been stolen. It makes our work very much difficult. That's my in the sense.
Thank you so much. Khuluso, I noted a few hands here in the middle. Sorry, Pleasure, I'm creating questions for you, ne, and PSC. Because initially the colleagues didn't have questions and I requested more questions because I knew the questions were there.
Thank you very much. My name is Henriette Petzer. I'm from the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. I want to echo what some of my colleagues have been saying about the CSD, and then we get audit findings about officials conducting business with the state. Now that is then picked up by the auditors, but we don't have access to any of those databases. I've been told about some software that we have to buy or doing extra work or appoint more people to check databases. So that is really a problem for us from this department. Thank you.
There was 2 hands this side.
Thank you. I think they've covered some of the question, but the issue is how does then departments, especially public service, and ensure that third party gives us proper information. Somebody wrote a letter of resignation from a company 4 years ago, and it's still appearing every year, and he has to tell us the same thing every year. It gets frustrating. No, it gets annoying to ask person the same thing and get the same answer, to say 4 years ago, I wrote a letter which I gave to you to say I have resigned, but it's still being picked up. Now, therefore, how, number 2, the system checks. One colleague said that we check, we don't find anything. Auditor General finds, so it means we have tools that do not work the same and will remain with the same problem. Okay, that's what it is. How do you assist us such that we get a proper system that will help us to check so that we get the correct information? My data is gone.
Thank you. Let's take the question from Tate Mongale. I'll hand over after Tate Mongale to the minister. Then we take a round of responses. We'll take other questions thereafter.
Thank you very much, Program Director. My name is Itumele Mongale, and I'm from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. Mine is not really questions, but an observation and a comment. So I believe that the role of an ethics officer could also be of a change agent, somebody who's able to get into the space, observe, look at what is happening, and be able to influence change in the department. I don't really believe that. Yes, I agree as a principle that data must be reliable, data must be useful. But you're not going to get to a state where you have a perfect data at all times. It's impossible. If you look at the category on vehicles, a vehicle is not really a long-term asset. It's something that you can have and then tomorrow you don't have it. But a fixed property is a long-term asset that the data about it will be consistent and reliable over a period of time. Don't get overwhelmed by the fact that data is changing quite often with regards to specific categories of disclosures, such as vehicles. That's my first observation. What it means is that you need to then understand as a change agent that a financial disclosure system is also a tool to improve transparency and accountability, and I emphasize the word accountability. It means that if there's a finding against Itumele, all that is required is that Itumele can simply give an explanation. No, I sold that car. Shouldn't overwhelm you that I'm saying that this is not true. The finding is true, by the way. It's based on data that you have. It's true. There's a finding, but then there's an explanation. I don't have that car anymore. I sold it. I sold a car about 2-3 weeks ago. That car will probably remain in the system for the next 2-3 years. And if PSC makes a finding, they're not wrong. Why do I get overwhelmed by the fact that this data is not consistent with reality? If I want to provide reality, then I can provide an explanation, and that is called accountability, and financial disclosure system is an accountability system. So don't get overwhelmed by those kind of pushbacks within a department, somebody saying that, no, your data is not accurate. In an ideal world, yes, probably everything is ideal and perfect. Okay, point number 2. The use of language is also very important for a change agent. So in my view, South Africa is doing extremely well. This is what I said yesterday. We had the opportunity to meet with the Public Service Commission, discuss all these things. And I'm gonna repeat this. The Public Service of South Africa is doing extremely well. PSC gave us the findings for, and I stand to be corrected, Tsepo. You gave us the findings for 21-22, and the submission rate, and now listen to me, the submission rate is 98%. 96% for 2019-2020. If it's 96%, it's not significantly different from 98. It's a very high submission rate. And the response from Public Service Commission and from the DPSA is that the 2% can be explained. And it's true, it can be explained. People are on precautionary suspension, people are on long sick leave. Why do you have emotions about it? It's a very high submission rate, 98%. And I hope I'm accompanying the delegation from Malawi, and I hope some of them can share with you. 98% is extremely high. You go to any country, don't be hard on yourself. Now, we sometimes use the word non-disclosure to mean the submission rate. There's a difference. Submission is that you submitted a form. And when you say 98%, you're basically counting the number of forms you have received. And you'll see some provinces have 100%, some departments 100%, and maybe one department, there's one individual that did not submit, and in the end you get 98%. So there's no issue about submission, really. There shouldn't be serious findings about submission, it's good. The problem is non-disclosure. Non-disclosure is failure to disclose a financial interest or an asset that you own. That is non-disclosure. So the findings on non-disclosure, if you look at them, it will be problematic if I don't disclose ownership of property, a piece of land, a house, whatever, a fixed property. If that comes up every year and the explanation is not satisfactory, there must be consequences, really. Because I won't be able to explain why, when I know that I have a house and the deed registry can prove that I have a house, and I'm not disclosing that, what is it that I'm trying to communicate? I've already talked about non-disclosure of vehicles and other things. If there's an explanation and it's satisfactory, move on. Move on. If you write compliance letter, you as an ethics officer, you have an advisory function as well. So when I say you are a change agent, it's because you can capacitate, you can empower people of knowledge and wisdom to be able to understand. We're not saying you're guilty of an offense because this thing is coming up now and then. I think I'm repeating myself now. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Thank you, Ndata Mangale. We'll hand over now to the Minister.
Thank you so much. Let me first of all thank the presenter for the good presentation. The first part of my question has been ably asked already. It was about the consequences for non-compliance, where when she was presenting, if I heard her right, the last part she said there must be consequences for non-compliance. So I wanted to find out, do you mean there isn't such? Or if there is, why are you not implementing it? And secondly, I wanted to find out, hearing from the presentation, it seems ethics officers do a dedicated work apart from their substantive work or job descriptions. So I wanted to find out, does the PSA have particular criteria when appointing or when designating the EOs? Do you look at maybe the qualifications or the positions, the position the person holds in the institution, or it is dependent on as it pleases the Director General or the head of department? Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues, for the questions. We'll now go for the responses, PSC colleagues and the PSA colleagues.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tsepo Matlare. I'm from the Public Service Commission. Most of you might have seen my name somewhere or heard about me. Now this is the face. I'm here to assist my colleague, Busika Sana. And yeah, I'll respond to those questions that are relevant to the Public Service Commission. Before doing that, let me thank Ms. Suki Swa from the Department of Labor and Employment, as well as my former boss, Mr. Ikumele Mongale, for the comments that they've made. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, the issue of third-party data. Yeah, we do accept that most of the time, most of the time it might be not updated, might not be accurate. But then we try by all means as the Public Service Commission, if there are SMS members in this house, some of you might, depending on when you joined the SMS cadre, you would remember that there were times where the Public Service Commission visited departments and we were consulting with SMS members one by one. We'd sit like the whole day or 2 days, depending on the size of that department or the sample that we had or people that we needed to consult with, to try and verify our findings, to try and understand when we say you are involved in a company which you did not disclose, you need to confirm, are you still a member of that company? What is your role? What is the extent of your involvement in those companies? And would make notes of that. If you have to resign from the company, obviously the CIPC record would indicate that a person has resigned, because they would have, records of every activity regarding that particular company and a particular member. But then if you say you have resigned and it is not reflecting on the system, then we would request you to provide us with evidence to say somebody was talking about a letter. I don't think the CIPC would like remove you from, or maybe indicate you as having resigned from a company by merely producing a letter. There ought to be a resolution from the company, first and foremost, that is submitted to the CIPC to say a resolution has been taken that so and so is being removed from, either removed or has resigned from a particular company. Then we'll need such evidence. Once we have that evidence, we record it, and then we also file. That's so that come the following year, we don't have to come back to you again and ask you the very same questions. Safe to say, in instances where we have information that you said, okay, I am going to resign, or I have resigned, or yes, the company, my name is there, but the company is dormant, it's not trading, then we will ask the EA to consult and keep on checking if the status quo is still the same or whether anything has changed. All right. Also with regard to notice, if you say you have sold the company or the company has been written, no, sorry, the vehicle. It has been written off, or yes, you know, things like that. We need evidence to show. Fine, the system might not be updated, but where do we get proof that the vehicle has been written off or it has been sold? So the problem is not you, it's the Department of Transport or whoever is responsible to update the record. So with the evidence, we are able to update our records and also to keep the evidence. Same with deeds. If you sold a house, it will show on the system. It might take time, but if by the time we do the verification, the deeds record have not been updated, we'll always request evidence to that effect. And I'm sure SMS members who are here who have ever been found to have not complied somehow, before a report comes out, we would have received a call either from your department's ethics officer or from one of the colleagues on the Public Service Commission who would be dealing with that particular form. They will call you. And I must indicate there are some SMS members who feel so important that they cannot just speak to anyone. They are rank conscious. You know, I really don't understand, because to us, your rank colleagues has got nothing to do with the work that somebody else does. I like what the DG of the DPSA, has indicated, when he was presenting what she was saying about leadership. To me, my rank is between me and the bank manager. The kind of the risk that I pose to the bank, or whether I'm creditworthy or not, it's got nothing to do with somebody else's work. A police constable can come and arrest me. I can't say I want a police, a commissioner to come and arrest you. Who are you? So same to you, as ethics officers, you do have those powers. You are appointed by the EAs or by the HODs. You have those powers, use them, you represent those authorities. So do justice to the positions that you have. Nobody should tell you about their rank, be it a DG or a DDG. If they have a problem with it, tell them I said so. Yes. Yes, because it's very important that we share this information. You share with whoever is doing a particular job, the information that they need, because some people's work depends on somebody else doing their work or providing something so that they can be effective. So we need to assist each other, in that regard. And I'm sure the code of conduct is clear in that regard. So please let us respect it. Okay. The lady from Gauteng, I'm sorry, some of the colleagues did not introduce themselves. So I managed to take the names of others, and others are just respond without mentioning their names. Yes, Gauteng, if you are struggling with 100% displaced, I don't have like the current report now in terms of the submission rate, but yes, there are provinces that are consistently achieving 100% submission rate. There are those who used to achieve 100% like 5 years in a row, then they drop. Yes, they will have challenges there and there. But luckily, for the Public Service Commission, there would be those provincially based commissioners who liaise constantly with the executive authorities and to make sure that they comply not only with the financial disclosure framework, but with other requirements as well. We try by all means, colleagues. I'm sure most of you would know ethics officers. The colleagues on the Public Service Commission will be in constant contact with you from April to say we are seeing movement in the system, but there are blockages somewhere. What are the challenges? What can we help? Can we get DPSA to assist? They will work come the 31st of May. They will work until 11 o'clock. Now, even because of desperation, now they will move from the ethics officers now try and, communicate now with the chiefs of staff in the ministers' offices to make sure that they get the ministers to, to comply, to submit, because we are trying, for us, it's not about writing and complaining that there's no compliance, but we want to assist, departments in ensuring that they comply. Mr. Mwala have talked about submission versus disclosure. Yes, it's not suffice just to comply in terms of submitting on time and then you did not, in that form, you don't disclose everything else. It's still a violation of the regulations. And that's why we make recommendations for actions to be taken. We'll talk about that, whether it should be taken to labor relations or not, because there was a question in that regard. So we also, when we call you and we pester you that, release the forms, assist your HOD, assist the minister. It's not like we want to look good. We want to help you, to achieve that 100%. So if you have any challenges, please contact the Public Service Commission, our colleagues there in provinces. The colleagues that are there that are assisting you in the national department. You also know those. If you don't know those officials, please, I'll be here. You can speak to me, and then we will assist. Right. Yeah. Consequence management. Yes. With regard to the Public Service Commission, if you look carefully at the Constitution, because I remember there would be talks during the Zondo Commission and stuff like that, people would ask if this and that could happen, and the Public Service Commission is there. Well, what was the commission doing? So I would like to invite you, your attention to Chapter 10 of the Constitution, just so that you understand the role that the Public Service Commission plays. We would make directions, in terms of the Constitution in certain respects, like the investigations that we do, and also talk about investigations. Somebody talked about that. But in most cases, the Commission has to make recommendations to the EAs, and those recommendations are made. It is the EAs or the HODs who have to ensure that there is consequence management in their department for transgressions. And then they have to report to the Public Service Commission on actions that they have taken, what action they took, and if actions were not taken, why did they not take any action based on the PSC's findings and the recommendations. The PSC does not investigate any other thing, like everything else, except for public, administration practices. That's why we do investigate, and we even have a specific, a dedicated unit that deals with public administration investigations. Where we do investigate things like appointment irregularities, and directions would be made as to what actions should be taken, and those are binding. We also do investigation on procurement irregularities, investigation on grievances where there was no resolution internal. But when it comes to financial disclosure, non-disclosure, non-compliance, that is, and the law is even clear on that. It is the responsibility of the head of department with respect to SMS members below the level of head of department, and the EA with regard to the heads of department. Kindly have a look at section 16A, 1 and 2 of the Public Service Act. Right. Okay. My colleague Busi have taken you through a slide where she has indicated the number of responses that we had expected, from the EAs, and how that has been complied with. So not all EAs are complying, are giving feedback to the PSC on actions taken. So we might not always know whether actions have been taken or whether they have not been taken, because we do not get that information. But then we would report on those EAs who do not cooperate with the Public Service Commission, when we do our reports to Parliament, those are the, that's the type of information that we would share with Parliament. Right, cases where SMS members have resigned but are not removed from the system. I think Pleasure will expand on that, but for the purpose of the PSC, I want to believe that with the kind of relationship that we have with ethics officers, we'll always check with the department that according to our record, this is the number of SMS members that we have. Is it accurate? Is this what you have in your department before we go on and finalize our reports? We try, that's how one way of trying to ensure accuracy, of the information that we put in our reports. We are very mindful of that fact that people may resign, others may join later, so we might have a high number or less, whereas it does not correlate with that of the department. So please, when we request information, colleagues, assist us by responding and giving us that information on time, because we also need to meet specific deadlines in terms of issuing our reports. Suspended officials where tools of trade are taken and stuff like that. I think now Mr. Morales talked about you as ethics officers being the agents of change. When we suspend somebody as a precautionary measure, that person is still in the system. They are still part of the staff establishment, still bound by the rules and regulations that applies to all employees in the public service. So you cannot be, people cannot be suspended and say, because you are suspended, you cannot comply. And even this system has improved such that you are able to use your cell phone to disclose, to submit your financial disclosure forms. If I'm wrong, I'm sure Pleasure will tell, but I know you can use your cell phone. You don't necessarily need a computer. You don't necessarily need to be in a department like it was the case. So you can still do that. But then the department, if they have people that they have suspended, they must recall those people to come for the specific purpose of completing that, that financial disclosure. That cannot be difficult. That person will still come to the department anyway for a disciplinary hearing or for whatever reason. So why can't they be called to come and disclose their financial interest? I would understand for people who are sick, so sick that they are not able, to disclose that, and that would be a valid reason. I mean, if I'm in ICU, how would I really be expected to disclose? So if the 2% that we are worried about, is that category of employees who are sick and unable to do it is something else. Or perhaps, I don't even want to mention if you are in jail or what, but yes. Yes, but unless it is absolutely not possible for one to disclose, that can be a valid reason, but suspension is not a valid reason, colleagues. So many questions. Yeah, I'm told time is not on our side, so I'm not sure I haven't responded to some of the questions. Maybe we might have time for that later.
Thank you so much, Ndade Tshepo, for the responses. I'm looking also at my audience because I'm just about to lose them. Others are starting to pray now. Is that prayer hour? That lunchtime. I'm going to hand over to Sis Pleasure. While she's coming to the podium, she can add on few questions that were not covered, and then she will be doing her presentation. Over to you, Sis Pleasure.
Thanks to me. Colleagues, I'm not going to repeat what Ntate Mongale has said or what Sapo has said. But as I have 3 comments, and as I'm making those comments, can you please load the presentation? Just 3 comments, colleagues. For those who have been interacting with us, I'm sure you think I've asked Ntate Mongale to say the things he has said, because that's the honest truth. Part of our job is to educate our employees, whether they are senior managers or not. They might not know about some of these things. The fact that insurance has written off your car doesn't mean it's out of INATIS system. You must make it a point that you inform the authorities that that car does no longer exist, whether it's written off or it's stolen. But until you do that, please, you can't do it when there's a finding against you. I know there are a few cases that were different issues, but I've always said this, and I will continue to say it until you also learn to say it to the employees. When an employee comes to you with a letter that he has written to CIPC, you must, how sure are you that that letter was submitted to CIPC? For as long as he doesn't have a response from CIPC that says the company has been removed, they must disclose that company. I don't see any problem in doing that, because in fact, you just copy from one year to the other if it's still the same information. Regarding CSD, I know, and I'm going to present here and tell you, employees are prohibited from conducting business with the state. Registration on CSD just shows intention that an employee would like to conduct business with the state. But unfortunately, there's no finding you can make against that employee. He hasn't committed anything wrong as yet. I know it's a risk, but you will never win any case against that employee if you are to sanction him or her for having registered on CSD. And the reason why we do not block employees from registering is that we know in the public service, anybody we pay through PESAL, we call that person an employee. And that's why we can't really block people, because some of them are not employees in the real sense of me and you being employees. So it will be difficult to say anybody, any ID linked to a PESAL number must be blocked. So we'll have to find solutions, but as of now, we do not have that solution. And for many of the questions, colleagues, we are conducting a risk-based verification training. For all of you who have already undergone that training, thank you very much for responding well. And for other provinces, please, colleagues, cooperate with us. You need to go through this because we answer some of these questions. Like you ask, why do people disclose loans if we can't verify it? There's a lot you can do with that information. And that training provides you with the tools. So Gauteng, Northwest, KZN, we are waiting. Limpopo, we are waiting for you. You are the only ones who are still behind. Minister, the question of ethics officers, the regulations require that the EA designate the ethics officers. So it's not a formalized process in the sense that you'd have a job description and criteria for those people, the qualifications and the like. So at the moment, it's the discretion of the HOD to designate such a person in the department. And this is a sore point, but we are already embarking in that process of formalizing this function. and to make sure that at the end, they are treated like any other appointed employee in the department with certain qualifications and criteria that we would require and with a clear job description. Currently, the regulations define the functions of that designated official, but we are translating that into a job description. And hopefully in a year or two, we would have reached that goal. So colleagues, maybe before I start, let me just also say formally now greetings and acknowledge the presence of the Malawi delegation under the leadership of Minister Joyce Chisumba. Professor Rousseau, I don't know if he's still in the room, but I know the team is here and his team. My colleagues from the UNDP and UNODC, our colleagues from Canada, Canadian Embassy, some are online, some are here. Our colleagues from Public Service Commission, DG has just moved out, and Solomon has also moved out. There's another meeting going on. Unfortunately, it's an international meeting. They couldn't get out of it. Fellow ethics officers, all of you who are present in the room, and all those who are attending online. Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm not going to be long. The presentation has moved out. I'm going to provide you with information for those who have already undergone training. Sorry, this is a repetition for you, but we need to formally inform everybody of the implementation of the PAMA regulations, which we envisage is going to be from the 1st of April, 2023. So there are changes that would be effected in terms of, for an example, the financial disclosure framework, plus conducting business with the state. You know, in terms of the public service regulation, we were prohibiting employees from conducting business with an organ of the state. And now we're moving on to the PAMA, which says prohibition from conducting business with the state. So I will inform you about the additional requirements and conclude with practical issues that we need to deal with. Just a little background and history. PAMA was promulgated in 2014. Now you'd say 2014 is a long time. And it's true, 8 years ago. And unfortunately, we had to develop regulations in order to implement the sections of the PAMA. So in 2019, because we were getting delayed, the minister issued a proclamation and put into effect Section 8 of PAMA, Section 15 of PAMA. That's why the Public Administration, Ethics, Integrity, and Disciplinary Technical Assistance Unit is currently operating as through those one of those proclamations. So in 2020, we concluded regulations on conducting business with the state and financial disclosure. And that is why we're moving on to that. So again, another reminder, in terms of Section 8, employees are prohibited from conducting business with the state. The little mistake that we made after the proclamation was to still leave Regulation 13C. And we know that that caused a confusion, but the principle is the same. You can't conduct business with the state or with an organ of the state. And because Section 8 was put in place, it's a criminal offense. And we now have 8 employees who have been found guilty of this offense. Fortunately, they went away with fines. I don't know any of them who has been imprisoned, but they have been fined or got suspended sentences. So besides the fact that it's a criminal offense, it's also a misconduct. So the fact that you have reported such to the police does not mean you sit down or the HOD doesn't take action, disciplinary action against the employee who is conducting business with the state. Now, an interesting point, and this has always been an issue when we deal with financial disclosure or other ethical issues, the question about special advisors. Now, if you look at a section just above the prohibition, it says for purposes of section 8 and 9 of PAMA, special advisors will be, they are included in the definition of employee. So this particular provision affect them. So no special advisor can conduct business with the state. So remember, there's a proclamation, so you don't even have to wait for the regulations. There's a proclamation, that section is in operation. So now what is contained in the regulations are duties and obligations of employees and other heads of institutions. So here I'm talking about the head of department because I'm talking to the public service employees. We have not as yet got the capacity to move to municipalities. So most of the time we are talking to public service employees. So that's why I'm talking to the head of department. It was deliberate to give you context. Otherwise, the PAMA itself says head of institution. So the HOD needs to develop and maintain a policy on employees conducting business with the department. Remember, you won't know what is happening in another department. So you know what is happening in your own department. That is why it's it says within the department. And such a policy will be published in the department's website. And any changes that are brought to that policy must also be published. So annually, you'll have to publish and republish if you're making any amendments. But if you are not, you must keep that policy on the department's website. And if anybody requests that policy, the HOD must be able to provide the copy of that policy. In addition to that, the HOD will keep a register of entities that conduct business with the department, and that register will also be made publicly available on the website of the department. So those are the obligations. So in terms of what now that policy should address, it should address the fact that employees are prohibited from directly or indirectly conducting business with the department. Now we know very well that some employees have already given over their ownership to their spouses or to their children, and they become employees in those entities. And then because they are not directors, now they want to conduct business with the state. We know that is already happening. So we're talking about directly or indirectly. We'll have to develop tools, of course, as the DPSA, to also refine some of these terms and make it possible for you to easily implement this policy. So the SCM policy of the department should also make sure that employees cannot conduct business with the state. One of our colleagues was saying she doesn't have access to CSD. If you are a department, you must be able to work with. A department is a department because it has all those units and individuals in the units. So we need to, when we work together, That's when we say we have a department. So I'm not working for myself and somebody else. If I have an issue that affects SCM, I go to Michael and ask him, what do I do here? And if Michael finds something that thinks has an ethical issue, he sends me an email and asks me, what do I do in this situation? And that's how we should work. You don't have access to CSD. Some of ethics officers don't have access to PESAL, but you need that information. So it means working with somebody who has access, because we can't all be getting free access to all the systems of government. We must be having a role to play in there. So we must also make sure that employees of the department are informed about this policy. So they must know very well that they cannot conduct business with the state. And we must make sure that within that policy, we also make sure that we prevent conflict of interest. Colleagues, it's very easy to prevent conflict of interest than to manage it. We have a session in the afternoon on conflict of interest management, but I can assure you, prevention is still better than cure, even in 2022. Now, you will see we still have reporting obligations. Now, as an employee, you are required to report your awareness of the fact that another employee is conducting business with the state. You are required to report that to the HOD, and not only to the HOD. And here it's not either or, it's and. So it's the HOD and the unit, meaning TAU or PIDI TAU, or technical assistance unit, whichever name is easy for you. So if that person is the SMS member, it's a HOD or is a special advisor, the EA needs to report to the president. If it's the national department, to the premier. If it's a provincial department, the minister, meaning the Minister for Public Service and Administration, again, and the unit. And if there's any suspicion that an offense has been committed already, that issue needs to be reported to the police. So that's about the regulations now on conducting business with the state. So we also have regulations on financial disclosure. So few things will change. Firstly, there's some terminology that we need to get used to. We were joking with Tsepo yesterday. It was the 2001 regulations that were saying PSC will conduct scrutiny of the financial disclosures. They are still using that word today, even if the 2016 regulation says verify. So that's why sometimes they will lose you. But we will have to change terminology a bit. I'll also talk about transitional measures. So we're no longer going to call people designated employees. They are called specified employees, but it still means the same thing. So if you are level 9 and upwards, you are now specified and not designated, but you're still required to disclose. And the regulations will refer to head of institution, because the regulations not only apply to the public service, they will also apply to the municipalities. And that's why we're talking about institutions, because a municipality is not the same as the department. And that then we have, so as a result, heads of institutions instead of heads of department. There are features of the PSR that would still remain, because it's not a serious change from PSR to PAMA. So all those employees who were designated under PSR, we're not going to start designation afresh. if you are designated as of now, you are still designated under PAMA. So that schedule is attached to the regulations so that nobody gets confused. Disclosure dates will remain the same. The only change that would now affect SMS members, and this will not start in 2023, colleagues, as that the disclosures will not be done annually. We will adopt what we have adopted for other categories where employees will alternate. But you still have to disclose any change to your disclosure during that period. Public Service Commission will maintain their responsibility in terms of assessment and verification. Verification and assessment of conflict of interest. Now they have added responsibility because they will also do for special advisors. So they will continue with the SMS members. And all new employees, same regulations. We still have the same reporting obligations, and the use of the e-disclosure system is still compulsory. We're not moving from that one. Now, just 2 additional requirements. We now have special advisors that are now regarded as employees, so they must disclose their financial interest. And this, colleagues, I'm afraid might mean additional work for you because now they will be treated as employees. Although for other things, they are not reporting to the HOD, they will be treated, their disclosure will actually be treated like that of an HOD. So it will not go through the HOD's office, it will go straight to the EA's office, just like the HOD's one. And then all those who are employees or specified employees must disclose the financial interest of their spouses. So that is an additional requirement. Now I know you are listening. Thank you very much. I was worried because I told Minister yesterday that if I say this and people are quiet, I know they are busy on their phones. They're not listening to me. So thank you. So colleagues, as specified employees, you also have obligations to make full disclosure, meaning you disclose everything that is required. Busi has told you that people do not disclose properties. I don't know, I wish I could have learned what were the reasons, because they forget cars. I wonder if they forget properties. So you have an obligation to make full disclosure. And if there is a change in that disclosure, you need to also, within 30 days, make sure that you record that change. If the change happens outside the disclosure period. And if your spouse would acquire or stand to acquire a benefit from conducting business with the state, you also need to record that change. The system will be made to be able to do that work. Now, in terms of access to disclosed information, all those people who are listed under Regulation 21 would still have access to information. 21, 20? Regulation 20 will have access. Additionally, now the head of TAU will also have access. Remember, he, together with the DG, are the system administrators. And any person now, I know these are the things that we've been struggling with under PSR. Any person appointed to initiate and conduct disciplinary proceedings must have access. But colleagues, people should not knock at your doors and say, I'm conducting investigation on Henriette. Can I have the financial disclosure? We will work out the process and the procedure. Law enforcement agencies charged with investigating or prosecuting an alleged offense, they must also have access. Anybody with a search warrant and a person acting under statute or court order. For people acting under statute, I can only think of auditors at this point. I don't know if there are others. Oh yeah, recently we've learned NPA can also summon us to submit the financial disclosure form because they are acting under statute. So the MPSA has been given powers to make publicly available summarized versions of the disclosed information. If you had Minister in the morning, Minister from Malawi, Ms. Joyce, she was telling you that all the disclosures that they have received are published in their website. So that is the route that we are going to do. The fact that it says summarized versions is to protect personal information. So we will also still act within the law, even if we do that, we publish that information. Now, another sore point, the regulations introduce formally, and I'm going to say formally, lifestyle audit. So it's in the regulations. It also introduces a process to be followed by the EA or the HOD. So this is the process that should be followed. When you conduct a risk analysis, if it's a specified employee, you can take the financial disclosure form, and this is, by the way, what you're going to do when you do the reviews. You're conducting a risk analysis based on that form. So this is what we talk about in that training. And then if you identify any discrepancy, remember this function is given to the HOD, but all of us in our respective units are discharging these responsibilities on behalf of the HOD. That is why I'm talking specifically about you as ethics officers. You will be doing that risk analysis with the financial disclosure form. If you identify any discrepancies, you need to consult with the employee about those discrepancies, and you get an explanation. So colleagues, an explanation is an explanation. You'll have to weigh that explanation. If it's not satisfactory, and it even suggests that there might be an offense or even corruption that is happening, that now you need to refer that case to the law enforcement officials or law enforcement authorities. And you report to the unit. You don't wait for the report from the police. You report to the unit in terms of that whole process that has happened, which means we will also be expecting progress reports until you close that case. Now, in conclusion, let me talk about it will be transitional measures and practical considerations that we are doing. Currently, you are aware that we have been moving the system from the physical server. Now, this is the language I copied. So if you ask me what I mean, I won't know. We're moving it from the physical server to the cloud. So I don't know if the cloud is in the sky or it's somewhere in Pietermaritzburg. Somewhere I hear Pietermaritzburg mentioned. So I'm not sure where this cloud is, but yes, and I think you would have the system as soon as next week, if not, if you're not having access by now, because that process has been concluded. So what we are doing currently is also to prepare the e-disclosure system to make sure that we are ready for the implementation, especially with the disclosure of the spouses, so that we are able to disclose nicely for our spouses. We don't struggle. Please don't ask your spouses to log on to the system and disclose. You need to disclose what you know they owe. And parts of the PSR that are conflicting with the PAMA will be repealed. I've given an example of 13C. We should have repealed 13C when the minister issued the proclamation, which is something that we did not do. We will do that. Now, in terms of way forward, you are going to receive formal communication. This is an information that you should know and prepare for, even in your mind. But you will receive formal communication from the DG, the EA, or even from the minister, because we'll also be communicating with the EAs in terms of the implementation of PAMA. We will also continue to have information sessions. So colleagues, if you call you for information sessions, whether virtual or physical, please attend, because we deal with these issues and there are questions. We try as much as possible to respond and make sure that you are able to implement these regulations at the end of the day. Because if you are not able to implement it, then there's no need for those regulations. Thank you very much, Edu. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you so much, pleasure. Colleagues, we can take the comments and the questions on the presentation. I'll take first few hands which goes up. I have 3 hands. Those are the hands that I'm going to take. Oh, the other 4th one is popping now. We have 4 hands that we are going to take for this session. Over to you, colleagues.
Yeah, thanks, Program Director. I'm Pendulo from Gauteng Human Settlements. Just 2 questions with regard to the e-disclosure system. It's currently not accessible, so we're having challenges to do the verification. Will DPSA consider moving the date for submission of verification, given that the date is coming closer soon and we have been struggling to access the information to verify the financial disclosures? And secondly, on the spouse, I see it's in singular. What happens in a polygamous relation? Do you only disclose for the senior spouse, umamkhulu? What happens to abomamncane? Thanks.
Oh, okay. Thank you, colleagues. Next question.
Thank you, Program Director. I'm Audrey Sibanyoni from SAPS. My question relates to the one that was just asked. It's relating to the extension also regarding the verification process. Are we going to get that since the system is down? My second question is, when we disclose for our spouse, what happens if your spouse is also in the government departments? Does he also disclose and you also disclose at the same time? I just need clarity on that one also. And then my third one is a section whereby we are supposed to update our disclosure within 30 days. Are we doing that via the concession process, or how do we deal with it if you want to update your disclosure? Thank you.
Okay, majority of my questions have been asked already.
Thank you. Oh,
So I do have the last one that I want to raise. It's around the POPI Act. Since we are now going to be expected to disclose the spouse information, will that not be against the POPI Act? I'm just checking. Thanks.
thank you, colleagues. Oh, the last hand is here, the last hand.
Thank you, Program Director. I'm Tabiso Peterson from Free State Treasury. Recently, the acting minister addresses the issue of councillors who are doing business with state section 30 and subsection 2 and section 31, part-time and full-time employees. We had a situation in our province where we do have a part-time councillor. But then now the findings from AGSA indicated that a criminal case must be opened, and then we must recover the whole amount the officials has received. And I understand that as Regulation 13C will be repealed. But then if you go and read that the proclamation, I think it's proclamation 18 something, it addresses the issue. We gave the person approval to do that. But then when the findings comes, it was a no, that we must recover everything and open a case. I need an advice there, and I would like also to thank DPSA to assist me whenever I need assistance from them. The second one is on lifestyle audit and financial disclosure. We've got officials who are acting in our department, and then you will find that when you receive a copy from a certain department and conduct your lifestyle audit on that or verify the information received, you will find that whatever property the person has acquired within a three years. For example, he's having a house of 2 million, and then in two years' time, he paid almost 1.9. In the remaining month, he settled the amount. Now, how do we address that issue? Because now the system and reporting of lifestyle audit rest with a certain department, not your department. Am I going to be a whistleblower to report that maybe to DPSA, or what's happening to that another department? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take the last comment from our colleagues from Malawi. Oh, okay. Thank you. Over to you, Sis Pleasure and the colleagues.
Okay, colleagues, on the issue of verification, sure, I think you'll get an extension. Maybe I don't think, maybe it's not thinking, you'll get an extension. We are very much aware of the inconvenience. And as I say, it unfortunately, it happened unplanned at that point, but we were going to do it anyway. So we were just overtaken by events and we had to do it there and there. So you will get an extension. With a spouse, you just add an S and then you get spouses. And the forms will keep on coming. So don't worry, even if you have 10, you will be able to disclose for all 10 of them. You know the system is capable, most. You can, I've seen people disclosing 18 companies. So it's more or less the same principle. So you'll be right, you'll be all right, don't worry. If the spouse is in another department, well, each department is dealing with its own employee. So you'll unfortunately have to do it. However, while we are preparing the system, we've also asked ourselves this question, and we're trying to come up with a solution where maybe you can pick another form or whatever. We will see what we can do. But if it's not done, you have an obligation on your side. He or she has an obligation on the other side. So please, let's make sure that we all disclose. We are again, as I said, we're preparing the e-disclosure system to implement PAMA. So you're not going to have to ask for a concession to update. The system should be ready for you to update. So there will be systems inside the system to allow you to record any change in your financial disclosure without asking for a concession. The POPIA, colleagues, I'm not a lawyer, but when things affect my work, I try to read and understand the law. And the text that I've seen in POPIA exempts information that needs to be processed by a public institution. So POPIA is not just POPIA. It's also recognizing that there are public institutions that need to process certain information in order to carry out their functions. And that is why we can request certain information. We will not do anything to break the rules in terms of POPIA. We are quite aware of the rules, and we are making sure that we're not going to break the rules. Part-time counselors, you know, colleagues, I've raised this with all the questions that came regarding counselors. There's a clear process in the PSR. So we can't, in September 2022, be debating this issue. Well, it's a reality, we are debating it, but that means no process was followed. Regulation 15 outlines clearly. So by the end of October last year, you should have been aware that there are people in the department who are now campaigning to be counselors. They should be on leave at that time. The HOD should be having their certificate. They should have applied for other remunerative work. So if things come sneaking now, then just go to the procedure and deal with the people in terms of the procedure, because then you have a lot you can fall back on many things. That procedure is very clear. There are so many things that should have happened. Does it mean that person did not take leave? That person did not inform the HOD that they intend to go and campaign? Did they not register with IEC? Where's the certificate? They're supposed to submit that certificate to the HOD. They're supposed to apply for other remunerative work before they engage in other remunerative work. That's why AG says, implement section 31. get all your money. Because section 31, it's very clear. If the person does not have approval to perform other remunerative work, then that person must come and donate to the government kitty. And fortunately, he can't cheat you because you would know, municipality will tell you how much they've paid him or her. So you can just get your salary back because they were not supposed to. If it's a new employee, then you did not follow the Z83. It asks there whether a person is conducting business with the state. And if so, what are you going to do? So if you employ a person, if the person did not answer the form correctly, it's an offense on its own. If they did and you just continued, then something is not right in the procedures. So I'm not sure. I think what my stand on this is to answer each and every case as it is presented. There is no general rule except to say, firstly, check if all the rules were. If they were not, then start there and deal with the issue. I didn't quite get the question on lifestyle audit. I think I heard the latter part that the person possibly has paid the house in 3 years, house of millions in 3 years. That is why you're reviewing the form. And that is why you're going back and checking, okay, but this property was not there for the past 2 years. It only appears now and it has already been paid up. That should raise suspicion. And that's why we're talking about suspicion. Now you need somebody to investigate. Remember, colleagues, some of you are not investigators and we're not asking you to become investigators. And that's why there's a bold word that says referral. So you can refer for a full-blown lifestyle audit or refer to the law enforcement agencies. They will do their work and they know what they are supposed to do. Thank you very much, Madam.
Thank you so much for the responses. Colleagues, now we have to take our lunch break. Our time now it's 1:30. No, 25 to 2. We are 35 minutes behind our time, our scheduled time. So let's agree on how are we going to assist each other so that we are able to get also the presentations that are left on the agenda to conclude the session today. Oh, yes. Oh, my apologies. Before we agree on the time for lunch break, colleagues, let's take the question or comment from our colleagues in Malawi.
Thank you very much, Madam Director. Maybe we thought we should just share thoughts and experiences with regard to the concerns on the spouse. In Malawi, our law, from the word go, of course, lucky enough, it included spouse. Of course, it's defined as a member of immediate family. So it's spouse, a child below the age of 18, or if he, she is above the age of 18, he, she must be either partially or wholly being supported by a public officer who is declaring. So I agree, we agree that it will not be an easy way, especially to you colleagues, ethics officers. It will require you indeed to have a strong will to convince those disclosing. It will not be easy because of the resistance from that spouse. We've had that experience because and we are just hopeful that this law is also covering this spouse as to if suppose she is not willing, there are sanctions. Is the law going to follow him or her? So we hope, I think this law is also covering that one. Now, specifically on the way the plural or singular, generally in the legislative drafting, we are not sure about the General Interpretation Act of South Africa, where it's a singular, it also includes plural, generally. Yeah. Furthermore, even if we don't have the General Interpretation Act, if one has two spouses, the absence of one spouse does not make the other one incomplete. Likewise, the presence or the combination or the presence of both does not make the other spouse bigger. So they are two separate entities. So don't worry, you handle it.
Thank you so much for the comment. I think, colleagues, it is a word of encouragement to say we should brace ourselves, because we will get those comments from our fellow colleagues who are saying culturally, I'm not supposed to ask my spouse, how much do you earn, how many cars do you have? So we need to brace ourselves for that, because they are definitely coming our way. So colleagues, our time now is 20 to 2. I would recommend and request that we take our lunch break for 30 minutes. So I'm checking with the colleagues as to whether the 30 minutes, can we agree on that, colleagues? Or it is not adequate, we should make it more effective. Okay. The proposal is that we make it until 2:30. 2:30, we should be seated in the auditorium. Okay. Kindly, and Atemos, direct us where the lunch will be served. Okay. So our colleagues will show us where the lunch will be served, colleagues. Enjoy your lunch. Can we do our laptop? Okay. They will lock the doors. I think that is here, but I don't know if it is not.